My name's Justin Roser, and I'm fascinated by color, and one in very particular, Moonstone. Moonstone was a standard Porsche color, not paint to sample, for 1979 and 80 on the product line. So the 930, the 924, the 928, and the 911 SC. It's like a light lavender, lilac color that always changes color, and it's not metallic. It can be white, it can be pink, it can be gray. Sometimes it's lightly blue, and then it's like lavender purple. And people see it differently. I either hear people say it's pink, or people say, oh, it's a lavender. Or they say it's not white. I feel like I've identified probably more Moonstone cars, and I've found, I think, around 10 so far, and I've been really looking around since 2018. I found 10. It's a small little network or circle of people that owns the cars. I mean, I think that there's like 4 or 5 cars in the US. There's a 5th car that I don't know the owner. I've just seen like someone take a picture at a supermarket. Wow, this is an interesting color, and it goes on a forum. And you're like, who's that guy or girl? Who owns that car? So I don't know all the owners, but there's cars that just pop up. I used to always look at cars on the internet, and there wasn't just like sites at that point that were, you know, very specific to Porsche. So you had to kind of know which dealerships had what cars. And I remember that Sloan Motors in Connecticut had a 79 930 that was in Moonstone. And the first time I saw the color, I was just in love with the car. And the car was obviously very expensive, so it was just like a dream car. But at that point, I don't think I knew or anyone knew that there was other cars in that color that were out there kind of hiding. The first one that found me, I passed on, and that was a 928. And that was the first car that was sent to me that was actually not the 930. So I was just like, wow, there's another car out there. And I was pretty stupid at that point to not buy the car, because actually I didn't really know like who I was or what I was really into. And at that point I wasn't into automatics, and I wasn't into 928s. And then actually during COVID, like in April of 2020, I woke up one early morning, and a dealer that I follow, I think, in Germany, posted a 924 in Flieda, which is what the Germans call lilac, which is really the other name of Moonstone. I think Moonstone only really exists for the US market, but in Germany and other parts of the world, it's called Flieda. And that car popped up. It had Porsche interior, and I was like frantically trying to connect with the dealer. I was writing him messages on Instagram, and then I was going to their website, and then I was going to WhatsApp, and I ended up being the first one that got the car. And that's the first Moonstone car I bought, which was the 924 that we've been rolling around in. It was really about the color of the car and the Porsche interior. I mean, that's another thing that I'm obsessed with, is the interiors that Porsche did in the 70s. So that car to me is kind of like, I would say, the epitome of the 70s. It's like it should roll up to like a disco. I mean, it's like lavender, Porsche. I really bought the color. And honestly, most of the time, that's kind of where I'm at, is buying the color of the car. Then a Coupe popped up like a month later. 79 Coupe popped up on Pelican Parts, and that was down in California. And that car was basically hiding for decades in a basement, and it kind of got unearthed and ended up on Pelican, and I ended up being the lucky person that picked that car up. It was pretty rough when I found it. Just with these really rare colored cars, it's like you got to be the first one to get the car, and then you kind of just figure out what you have later. And so that car showed up. It literally had been sitting for, you know, decades in a basement in San Francisco. And so when I got the car, it just, you know, the car, when you shoot Moonstone, it looks pretty good, even if the cars are a little bit rough. It, you know, it hides scratches and imperfections in the paint. You can't really see that. So the car looked amazing to me. Oh, wow, 30,000 miles, one owner and all this. And it showed up and I was like, I kind of almost went in the fetal position because I had to do a lot of work to get the car to where it is today, which meant wet sanding the car. And the guy that I'd bought it off had done a bunch of touch-up paint that was not good. Luckily, it was pretty fresh. I pulled it all off, and with my friend, who's a pretty good paint wizard, kind of just feathered in single-stage paint and made it as best as we could. That car ended up driving for 10,000 miles. I daily drove the car. I called it the Moonstoner. And then another special color Porsche came into my life, and I kind of had to pick which car at that point I wanted to really invest more time and money into. And that ended up being another car, which is a 76 911 press car in magenta, which is another color I absolutely love. I sold the Coupe, and then I was just like looking online, and it's really hard to shoot Moonstone. It mostly turns out white in photos. So I saw this kind of white Targa in a classified ad, but there was one picture of it where like the trunk was open and I clearly could see that it was purple, and it was in German. So I went down and scrolled down, and sure enough, the color, it said violet, you know? So I was like, wow, I was really interested at that point. So I contacted the owner, and that car ended up just getting shipped out to Germany in 2008 when the recession here happened. An American owner who had had that car since 1990, he felt guilty owning a nice Porsche when he was having to cut back on some of his employees and things like that. So he sold the car, and the car is a Sportomatic. And the guy who bought it in Germany had a motorcycle accident, so he really wanted a Sportomatic because he couldn't really use his left leg. Sportomatic is like it's a manual transmission without a clutch. So when you put your hand on the shifter and apply a little pressure, it clutches in through like an electromagnetic device, and then you basically shift without a clutch. He traced back that the car actually was a press car, and it was the first 911 SC built, VIN 11. And probably I would say it's the first Moonstone car built because it was paint to sample, built in 77, still paint code 601, but that color wasn't, like I said, a standard color till 79 or 80. So I'm pretty sure it's the first car that was in that color. I drive all the cars a lot. All these cars have high miles. None of them are like no mile cars. I mean, that Targa's got 210,000 kilometers, and if I keep going, let's get it up to 500,000. I like that people get to interact with the cars. It's all part of the history and the story that you keep adding to it. And it's not actually, in my opinion, not fair, you know, to the car. I mean, the car has a life. Like I said, I believe that they're kind of alive. So if you give the car attention and let other people interact with it, and the car to feel others' energies that are around it, whether it's just a young kid sitting in the seat in a playful way, I feel like that gets ingrained in the car itself and adds to the story, and it's like a happier car. I think the cars are happier when they get experiences, and I always feel like that. If you drive them more, they just seem to be better to me. I don't like have them just hanging out, and some people are into that, it's fine, and they like low miles, everything. Like, again, I'm just buying the color, and if the car has a history, it's actually another part of it. One, it's the part to find the car, but once you find it, then the other part for me is to find the history of the car. And that still takes a life of its own. I mean, there's things that I still don't know about all the cars. Like, I don't know about the Targa from 1990 back. I'd like to know what it was doing in Alaska, how it got to California. Those little morsels come out here and there. Another one pops up, and all of a sudden you talk to someone and says, oh, that's Tommy's car. And then you get a hold of Tommy, you know. And then the story gets even better, and then you fall in love with the car even more. I don't get Moonstone. Like, I honestly, I'm still trying to discover, like, what's the origin of it? What's the color? I really want to know who designed it and what the inspiration was behind it. All the colors are rare. To find ruby stone cars or any of these colors, they're all rare. But I think Moonstone somehow is the most elusive one. I mean, it might not be the most rare. I mean, it is very rare, but it has just like this like really mythical quality and spiritual thing that I don't really understand. It has like an emotional resonance with people somehow. I don't know how, but I've noticed that around people and those cars. It's not like a color that someone's gonna go and want to necessarily take a picture with the car, but almost walk around the car and be in the presence of the car like in an emotional way. And I've witnessed that at different shows around different people that I don't see in other colors. And I think that's what's so special about the color. I don't know if that was behind the creation of the color, or if whoever created it, you know, had that concept or what it did at that time, but it definitely feels like a very cosmic color.